Catherine Beard, a Liberal Democrat MEP for the South East. How big a problem in the South East are invasive alien species?
Well, it's kind of complicated. There are a lot of invasive species that have come into the southeast region already that we love. I mean, nobody's garden would be looking the way it has done this summer without species of plants from around the world. What we're concerned are the invasive species that come in and take over and destroy the natural, what we call the biodiversity, the natural capital that keeps all the systems going in our countryside.
And what kind of problems do those invasive species, because as you said there are alien species from around the world that come to the UK, but these invasive species, what kind of problems do they cause in the South East for the ecology, for the economy?
Yes, well, we've heard recently about the water vole is severely threatened in the South East and just pockets of them left. That's because of the mink that came in from America and were released into the wild. There are all sorts of other things. Some of your listeners may well remember the red-eared terrapin that was a real craze as part of the pet trade for kids when the Ninja Turtles were around. They were released into the wild and are breeding and displacing our own wild creatures. So it's those sorts of things. A lot of pets come in with pathogens on them and then they get out, frogs and toads and that sort of thing, get out into the wild and destroy our own very vital animals and creatures in our wildlife.
So far we've had a proposal from the European Commission of how it wants to see this very big problem tackled. First of all, why does Europe have a role in this? Why does it help to look at this from a European dimension?
Well, funnily enough, these plants and these animals don't recognise when they get to a border and they will keep moving around. Belgium had a really good programme of knocking out the Japanese knotweed, but it just kept coming in from France. So we have to work on these things across borders and look at what is good for one because they will travel around. And so we have to have a plan for the whole of Europe.
And you mentioned in between France and Germany, but in your own constituency, I suppose things can come even across the channel, given the kind of near proximity of the mainland Europe to your constituency.
Oh, absolutely, and things blow on the wind and in the boots of cars, on the mud of wheels, and all the sorts of things. It's a threat not just to the wildlife, but to agriculture and to our economy, and we have to be very careful. We have an international trade, not just within Europe, but of course a global trade, and things that come in containers and all those sorts of things we need to be aware of and be on guard to take action when we spot them.
So what do you make of these proposals from the European Commission? Are you happy? They've been long delayed, so are you happy that they've come out now, and do they go far enough for you?
It only came out yesterday and I now need to go through it in detail. At my first glance, it's a bit thin. There's a lot of work, I think, for the Parliament to do. It says there should be a list of 50. Well, 50 is tiny. Do they mean 50 plants, 50 mammals, 50, or is it 50 in everything, which I would think is really crazy. Their terminology, species. My husband's a zoologist. He's just discovered another bush baby species. So are we talking about that? When it comes to pathogens that come in on pets, how are we dealing with that? So there's an awful lot for us as the Parliament to do, to scrutinise what's there, to improve it, to amend it. So that's what I will be doing over the coming few months, to really work hard on this, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to get this right, to protect our biodiversity, which is so vital.
I mean, the RSPB have also reacted to these proposals. They say that what they'd like to see is an introducer liability. So going along with the EU's principle of the polluter pays, They say that the people that introduce these, if of course they can be tracked down, should be the ones to pay. What do you make of that? Because they say these aren't that idea isn't in these proposals.
It isn't, and it's an interesting idea, and it's something we need to look at and to discuss, because sometimes a good idea when you look at it in more detail might not be quite good, but there's certainly a germ there that we can work on. Yes, the polluter pays, and maybe the person who knowingly releases animals or plants should have some responsibility. As you say, it will be very difficult to track them down. If they've come in on a container and nobody saw the spider, nip out, that's not so easy. But bringing in plants that they know are invasive, like knotweed or the giant hogweed, for a wonderful garden display that then gets out. Maybe we should look again at that. So caution and being looking at preventive action rather than trying to react afterwards once things are out in the wild. It's much harder to do then.
And just briefly to sum up, really, to return to the central point, why is it so important to get this right? Why does it matter that we have plants and animals coming into the South East that don't belong there?
Our environment is so fragile, and it is under threat from so many different attacks. We have climate change, we have building pressures, we have water pressures, we have all those sorts of pressures. To add on to that, animals and plants that displace and destroy is just another thing too far. We have to protect what our natural capital is, because we all depend on it. We know the problems with bees. If we lose our bees, most of our plant species that we need to eat will be gone. So precaution is the absolute watchword, and we need to be looking in the Parliament very seriously at this. Time is not on our side because we're coming to the end of the parliamentary session, so we need to get this right, and then we need to get all the member states to sign up to it too.